Techlandia is recorded at the central office on the east side in Portland. Central Office is a one stop for all your office or meeting needs. Check them out at centraloffice.com. Welcome to Techlandia, a podcast about and for the technology industry, a place to learn, connect, and engage with leaders and thinkers involved in the technology industry. You can check us out at techoregon.org, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
Welcome to the latest episode of Techlandia, Tao's regular podcast series. I'm Skip Newberry, President and CEO. And with us as guests today, we have Eli and Kyle, and they're with a company called ResetOS. And we are going to be talking about opportunities for folks in a chaotic world with a lot going on, a lot of dynamism. How do you reset? How do you get more grounded? And what does that whole process and methodology look like? So Eli and Kyle, we're really pleased to have you with us. Look forward to chatting more with you both today.
Oh, man.
Oh, we're stoked to be here, Skip.
Thank you, Skip. We are so excited, man. Really appreciate you.
Awesome. So as most listeners know, we typically start off with sort of some context setting. Would love to hear from both of you. If you can describe your individual journeys, if you will, professionally, and kind of how you ended up today doing what you're doing. What was the inspiration, and which one of you wants to kind of kick us off here?
Let's roll. I'll roll. My name's Eli. So Kyle and I, we have been business partners and more importantly, best friends for the last 13 years in 4 different ventures. And it all started back at a school called Chico State here in Northern California. We were both going there. Kyle graduated 2 years before I did. We met at one of our really good friends' dinner parties, and there was one guy cracking jokes, and it was Kyle, and I was the only one laughing. So I don't know. I don't know if that was really good.
Appreciate it.
Meant to be.
You're a stand-up comedian.
Yeah. So we met there, and we got involved in a tech startup for action and adventure sports called Soul ID. We were one of the 4 founding members of that social network. And essentially, we grew it to 190 countries. We rubbed elbows with all of our kind of childhood, or at least my childhood, stars. Everything from Shaun White, Travis Pastrana, all these guys in the action sport world, skiing, snowboarding. And we grew this social network. So through that, Kyle and I, we led the marketing and kind of some of the business development and partnerships there. And it was one of the best times of our lives.
Pretty fun.
Hands down.
That was pretty fun.
It was really fun. And then after that, we kind of went, I went down an e-commerce route. I started an adventure sport brand, learned to do the sourcing from point A, being sourcing, designing, procurement overseas. I spent a little bit of time in China and then brought everything over here, learned how to sell direct to consumer, all different platforms. And that was at the time when Kyle went down a media route, and he really took the photography world kind of at force.
Yeah, and so I opened my own studio up, did some commercial photography for some very large brands and businesses in Northern California, and I found that I wanted to get back in the startup world. And I wanted to scale, and you only can do that so much as an independent freelance photographer. And so I started doing research on how do you create a photography business at scale, and how do I use Eli's skill set he's learning with e-commerce. And so sure enough, me and him grabbed a beer or 2, maybe 3, at one of the local watering holes, and we kind of looked at each other, and we both came to that meeting saying, there's more to what we're doing, and what are we going to do? And I was like, I have this idea. What if we started e-commerce photography and video production? Sure enough, that led us down about a 6 or 7 year path of building a very cool brand. We were the number 1 lifestyle product photography company at one point internationally. We were working with the largest retailers and online brands out there like Disney, 5 Hour Energy, Roku. The list goes on. And that was a really cool experience for us. We built a team of over 15 people, but during that period of our life, there was a lot of ups and downs, a lot of valleys and peaks that we went through. And that led to what we're doing today, a company called ResetOS, and it's an operating system for individuals to go on a structured solo retreat experience. And we help those people realign with what's next in life and what is their purpose.
Go ahead. I feel like you're about to say something.
No, that was kind of
Oh,
leading us. I mean, we can kind of go into the story of and the ethos behind why it's so important to reset. But Skip, that kind of brought us all the way up into present day. I mean, that was like 13 years sped really fast. So
yeah.
dive in.
Well,
We're going to dive.
yeah, totally. And I'm wondering, like, what was there like a single event that caused you to have this epiphany where you're like, more people need this type of sort of methodology, the system, in order to kind of navigate through life's ups and downs? Or was it more of like a cumulative sort of effect?
Well, it was both, and happy to share. November 8th of 2018, I was living in Paradise, California, and at the time, it was in the Sierra Nevada foothills. Me, my first child, and my wife. We loved living there. Beautiful town, a mountain town. But sure enough, living in Northern California, there was a lot of wildfires. And I woke up November 8th, 2018, hearing about a fire called the Camp Fire, which was the number one catastrophic and costly event in the world in 2018. And sure enough, I got in the crossfires of that wildfire, and I lost my home. My mom and dad lost their home, and I lost my business in downtown Paradise. And on top of that, November 7th, 2018, me and my wife found out about our first miscarriage. So I was going through a lot. There was a lot of different feelings that I was having, emotions. I was homeless at that point with my child. I had just escaped the trauma of a wildfire. And we just lost our child that we were so excited for. And what I do best was I was resilient. I fought back. I was ready to go. I was ready to have the backbone of the family, taking care of my family, my son, my wife, and my parents. And how do we move forward with that? Well, when you're the resilient one, a lot of times you suppress your emotions. And that's exactly what I did. And I tried therapy. It kind of helped. I was diagnosed with severe anxiety, depression, and PTSD. But all of those suppressed emotions accumulated on April 21st, 2021, where I woke up at 4:30 a.m., complete anxiety attack, looked at myself in the mirror, and I said, I'm going to call it quits. I'm done. I can't keep going forward anymore. I can't see future. And I was completely numb in life. But luckily, I heard the word escape. And that's exactly what I did. And some people would say that means progression of the decision that you want to make and you're escaping reality in life. But I looked at it as escaping the noise.
Mhm.
I did just that. I went on instantly booked a trip to Coos Bay for 3 days by myself, went on my own personal solo retreat with journal prompts, activities, and exercises. And I came back a completely changed individual, ready to go. I was back to the father that I was in 2018, the husband, business partner, employer that I needed to be for everyone. And so that was the beginning of a solo retreat. And I'll let Eli jump in here real quick. But the one thing that I've learned since is, that trip saved my life and gave me the focus I needed in life. But uh, as I reflect back on that now, that weekend wasn't for me. It was actually for all the people that we've impacted till this day, and that's really special. And I hold that sacred to myself, to my heart.
When Kyle had gotten back from his solo retreat, things come in threes. I had found out that I was being cheated on, and my marriage ended in a divorce. Our business, the product photo and video company that we were talking about, completely crumbled overnight. I mean, literally overnight. And we had to lay everybody off, which hurt more than the divorce as I look back and I reflect on that, being a people pleaser and being somebody that I feel accountable to all of those humans. And then I had lost my great uncle, who was this kind of compass in my life, all in the span of 2 weeks. And Kyle, I was lucky enough to have an amazing business partner and best friend who had just gone through what we call a solo retreat, which he handed me some prompts and said, "Hey, dude, you got to get away, come back and realign." Because the question I kept asking myself was, was it me or and is it me? So some of those deep questions I was looking for answers for. And the best thing to do in those cases is to shut the world off, disconnect, unplug, and start to hear that inner voice again without any external noise. I did it, came back a completely changed human, and I had a ton of clarity on my next path and how we can wrap this up and impact a ton of different lives. So that those seeds were planted and we kind of did a little bit of watering. And then we come back, if you fast forward 5 years ahead of that is when we kicked off ResetOS, which is what it is today. And it all stems from experience. Everything that is in the solo retreat box that individuals take out to a place of peace, solitude, serenity is all built on what we did. And that, to Kyle's point, was what he heard out there. That is one of the things that I had journaled about, which is my calling and purpose, which is to impact as many individuals with solitude and deep introspective work to create their clear path forward. And we talked about a little bit in the pre-show, Skip, everything going on, all the external noise. A lot of people need that. A lot of people need to reset and do it in a structured environment, not something where they're just going in the woods with a journal.
That's a really poignant observation too. I mean, there's a lot of folks who feel like they're drowning amidst all the noise right now.
Sure.
And I hear it a lot in conversations that I've had with different leaders and other folks just, trying to navigate life, work, family, obligations, etc. And I think one thing that has kind of hit me recently is that, there's a need for folks to kind of hit pause. And so this notion of like an escape, the term that you used, I think is a really interesting one, and wanted to ask, like, is there, in terms of the sort of program itself, now, how did you align on this kind of self-guided approach? And I'm wondering if you could kind of walk through a little bit what the component parts look like.
Yeah, no problem. How we aligned on that was it was what we did. It's the tools that we used and things that we came to realization on how to deal with the stuff we were dealing with. That was to remove the noise in our life and really engage with what was present currently, seeing what's true with who I am, the things I've gone through. And then the next step is envisioning what's next in life and then taking that aligned action. And that's actually a framework we've created around the word reset. And being able to offer that to people and build programs around that has really helped individuals go through different steps in their life, whether it's small transitions or big transitions, or they're just really questioning what their purpose is.
Yeah, I think, to just kind of wrap a bow on some of the big topics, it's self-discovery. So who am I? Why do I do the things that I do? Self-reflection. So looking back at these limiting beliefs that are holding us back, where do those habits and rhythms come from, and trying to rewire those? And then lastly is about vision crafting. So what Kyle said, the framework we built, those are kind of the big subjects for a weekend or 3-day retreat these individuals take. But at the end of the day, it comes back to when you do the deep inner work and you do it from within and it comes from within, that tends to stick a lot more than somebody preaching at you and telling you what you should and shouldn't do. That's what we've seen them actually take these aligned actions and build the visions because they discovered it themselves.
Is there a certain sort of persona or like an archetype that this is appropriate for, or would you say it's broadly applicable?
Yeah. It's also, I'll give you kind of two-part answer. It is really applicable because it's about, I would say, like identity shifts for a lot of individuals. So a founder that sold their business, that was their identity. And now it's like, who am I? Who is the next, what is my next chapter? Empty nesters, people that have gone through divorce, people that have gone through trauma, people trying to retire or have retired and now they've kind of lost that purpose. So it's agnostic in that perspective, but who we like to work with and who the program has worked really well for in the past is the term like high performers. So founders, executives, purpose-driven leaders, those individuals seem to get, I'd say, the most out of the program and also be able to take that correct aligned action.
Yeah, these are individuals that are holding a lot and balancing a lot in life.
Exactly.
And they have a lack of fulfillment because each one of those buckets are misaligned in where they're heading. And when you finally can have alignment in each part of your life, and when we say that, that's your physical health, your mental health, your family, your spirituality, the fun you're having in life, and the relationships that you have. When you can align all of that towards one purpose and calling, that's where fulfillment's going to have. But high performers have a very hard time doing that because they are so involved in the day to day with their business or the company they're working for. They get blind to it, and there's so much noise that they can't cut through. A lot of times, they need to figure out how to be encouraged to give themselves the permission to take a step back, take a pause, and really reset. What am I doing here? Why am I doing it? And where am I going?
And with respect to the retreat itself, are there certain activities or things that you recommend folks like do? Or is it kind of self-directed? You choose your own adventure. I mean, could it be as simple as like a walk in a neighborhood over the course, or throughout a city over 3 days? Or is it something that could be a little bit more intense or varied?
Yeah, so there's two parts to that. One, we do teach people to do what you're talking about, a micro reset. So going for walks, having an intentional cup of coffee, and having small moments of just taking a pause. That's something in the integration piece or things that we just teach people in general when we do speaking and workshops to do on your daily basis. What we're doing is a complete major mindset shift and really shaking up your nervous system and the way that you operate in your life. And so when people go on these retreats, it's a fully guided kit and experience where each day is a different workbook with different activities, tools, and journal prompts that walk you through each of the day themes, which Eli mentioned earlier: self discovery, self reflection, and vision crafting. And we do it in a very specific order with each one. There's 3 a day, and there's also options to expand on each one every single day and some bonus activities. But it all formulates into our reset framework and really being able to take aligned action because were able to finally take a pause and take a look at who you are, what you're doing, and where you need to head.
That's great. That's great. And in terms of how folks can essentially go down this path, are there opportunities for people if, say, they do a retreat and they're like, okay, I'm coming away with a completely transformed approach to my life, my professional pursuits, my relationships, but you know what, I could really use some additional check-ins or guidance or little mini resets along the way. Is there like a coaching component to you that's available?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the things that we see from all of these students is they come back from their solo retreat. They have aha moments that are just endless. They've journaled 80 pages or so, and they come back and they just want somebody to talk about it with. So we sit down with them for an hour and we do kind of a coaching session, a debrief with them. And that typically is just becoming the kind of bumper rails down a bowling alley for them, where we're asking them the right questions. Again, when they find the answer out themselves, it sticks harder. But one thing we've all done, and I'm sure Tim's done it, Skip's done it, Kyle's done it, I've done it, is backslide. That is when we are super excited, we have clarity, we've gone to the motivational talk, we've read the book, we've gone to the or whatever that might be. At some point, you're going to backslide right back to where you were. I think they call it Second Friday or whatever. Apple said some term at the beginning of the year when people have a New Year's resolution, and by the second Friday, it's done.
Right.
The goal here is to prevent people from backsliding. So we have what's called it's the immersion experience. So it's called the Reset Immersion, and essentially it's a year-long program when they come back from their solo retreat, and that is when we surround them with accountability, basically board members that have gone through the solo retreat. So they're on a level playing field. And then at the same point, we're doing virtual masterminds once a month. And then we do 2 in-person mastermind retreats out here in Central Oregon. And what's cool about that is you have accountability partners. You are putting in play the stuff that you did on your solo retreat, but you're doing it with individuals that are in the same boat as you. So that is what we like doing the most, is facilitating that, because they've done this solo experience. And now we bring them into kind of this community environment.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about these in-person retreats in Central Oregon. What do those look like?
Totally. So a big chunk of them are very intentional and present driven activities. Even as simple as, like, guys, we're going to all make our own coffee. We're going to grind the beans. We're going to be intentional and have gratitude for where they were picked, how they were picked, the process and resources it took us to get them here. We're going to make a very intentional cup of coffee, and we're going to sit there all together and watch the sunrise and be grateful for that day. Very small example. Contrast therapy, doing something hard, camaraderie building, fun activities, campfires, intentional dinners, networking, and then hot seats as well. So people are the power of a mastermind is pure learning, pure mentorship. And when you get a lot of great minds in a great room, typically whatever you're struggling with, you can move a lot quicker because there's people in the room that can help you illuminate that path. And that, I think, is a power of a mastermind. We've been in them, we've joined them, and our mastermind seems to get people to move quicker and take aligned action what they found in the solo retreat.
That sort of in-person human connection too has to be pretty powerful. And also, providing more accountability for folks who have gone through similar experiences at about the same time. And I'm wondering if there's do you find that there's almost like an alumni network effect where folks continue to, rely on one another or build relationships coming out of some of these transformative retreats?
Absolutely. People thrive on having their tribe and they thrive on camaraderie. But a lot of times there's that point of what is the thing we have in common? And then there's that, but there's also, have we done something difficult and tough together? And when you find that alignment with other individuals, there's just this level of vulnerability and trust that you build with someone. And absolutely, I would look at it as an alumni type of deal. These are people that are coming back to our retreats because they almost feel like it's a coming back home because it's realigning the thoughts and the items that they addressed in their retreats in the way and the walk and the path that they've been doing and making sure that maybe they see that 1 degree shift that happens, which may take you into a whole different direction, and really getting back to their true north. And it's really important to be able to have that reset with others that have done that.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many different people I've talked to over the last probably 6 years in particular, who are founders, execs, and many of them have kind of hit a wall at some point in one of these areas in their lives, professionally, personally, family, a friendship, whatever. And it causes them to kind of pick their head up for a second and feel like, okay, I'm getting completely consumed by the noise. And it takes a lot, I think, in many of these cases where you have type A personalities and people who are kind of mission driven. They kind of need to have almost some sort of an external event jar them into awareness. And I've been amazed at the number of people I've come across who have engaged in some sort of a variation on a retreat, or have looked for opportunities to kind of just escape for a little bit and work through some things. And the thing that was interesting, though, was in all these conversations, I think a lot of people did allude to this like backsliding tendency.
Sure.
And so much of it is kind of like training a muscle, right? So having those regular check-ins and those subtle shifts, over time, they become learned habits or new behaviors. And I love what you guys have done with like building this sort of community around all the self-guided tools as well. And I'm wondering, what does your vision for the future look like? I mean, I look at the number of folks around the US and globally coming out of the pandemic that have really suffered from, a lot of trauma and a disconnect, like the feeling of loneliness
Right.
so I mean, where do you see things going? What's your vision for ResetOS?
So coming up with more immersive style experiences. there's so much going on right now about silent retreats and dark retreats. Like that's a whole nother level. I would say our retreat's kind of like the gateway drug into taking time for solitude. And it's so powerful, and there's so much neuroscience backed with the power of solitude and how our minds actually need to remove the noise to have that deep introspective creative insight actually blossom, which is why when you're on a long drive or in a shower, you're not thinking about anything. And so that starts to go to work, and your best ideas typically are coming from that. So I say all of that because coming out of the pandemic, I think people are used to being kind of by themselves, but they're thriving for community, but they also want to do it in a very comfortable manner. I think we see a lot of these high performers, executives, tech CEOs that we work with being very introverted. And I think the pandemic was a big part of that. And what's cool about our program is they don't have to join another mastermind. They don't have to go to an in-person retreat or go to another networking event. That's not a comfortable space for them, but they know they need to do that. So when they do a solo experience like this, they feel very confident and comfortable jumping into that environment. So it's kind of a cool gateway for them to have the clarity on what is important to them. And by doing that, we've seen it work. We've seen people, kind of blossom into their potential and what that is. And they had that path they discovered in the solo retreat. So our vision is really to impact as many individuals as possible. We have a really cool book that we're coming out with. We're speaking on some really cool stages, and we're really just trying to create that impact, which is what Kyle and I discovered when we were both on our solo retreats, which is the gift that we have, the gift of solitude, and really the gift to spread this thing to millions of people.
That's pretty exciting. I mean, it's a pretty compelling vision. As you talked about, kind of the need is great, and I feel like a lot of folks could do well by not waiting for some sort of traumatic event to have that aha moment, but rather, the time to do this was yesterday.
Totally agree, man. We always say it's important to dig the well before you're thirsty, and being proactive and having the tools to navigate burnout, to navigate lacking of clarity and fulfillment. This is exactly what we do.
Awesome. Well, I'm wondering, as we kind of near the end of our time together, what are some things that you might want to leave our audience with?
Yeah, absolutely. We talk a lot about these solo retreats and the change and the difference that it can make by heading out for 1, 3, 6, even 9 days. Sometimes some people do. But going back to micro resets is really important in order to get your mind straight and your focus where it needs to be. And it doesn't take much to really start walking this path of understanding what to do in the power of stillness, quietness, and solitude. All it takes is 5 minutes a day to take a step back, remove all the noise, and just sit with yourself. And what you'll find is your inner deep voice will slowly become louder and louder, and all of the questions you have will be answered through self-reflection and discovery. But the biggest thing is being able to give yourself that space to be able to do those things.
Well, thank you both for taking some time to join us and share a little bit about, the sort of journey you're on and kind of where it's led you, which is, I think, something that could be really helpful to a lot of folks. And thank you as well for taking some time to share some of those lessons learned with our audience. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to be on this, and we love meeting and talking to people. So please add us on LinkedIn. Just type in Kyle Nelson or Eli Libby. And we have this really cool newsletter we send out every Sunday called the Weekly Reset Newsletter. And it's one prompt, one quote, one question, and one story. It's about 3 to 5 minutes of your Sunday, and it's a way to end your previous week with reflection and start the next week with intention. And that's just at our website at resetos.co.
Excellent. Thank you both.
Thank
you guys.